check everything, but I didn't. Hello, welcome everybody. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom, Pajama Grandma, here with the amazing Lori Marsh for our Supersize Your Business interview. And Lori is an amazing woman. She is a multidisciplinary artist, I can't even say that, an entrepreneur, and she's got an emphasis on storytelling and all the creative ways that you can use storytelling in your business.
Indeed.
So Lori, I would love it if you would just, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, because I did a meat-axe job on explaining and introducing you, but what you do and then why you do it, how you got started doing what you do.
Oh, okay. So this is the challenge for any storyteller, how to frame your story to keep everybody's interest in the duration it takes to take an elevator ride. Here's my elevator speech. I am a compulsive creative, meaning everything to me is a before and after picture, and everything to me has a caption underneath it. It's been that way since I was knee-high to a basketball. And over the years, I also am not very good at taking, how do I put this? I like being autonomous. So from an early age, I think I had my first business when I was 18. And I like being my own boss. So the combination of everything being a story to me and liking autonomy has meant that my path has included working in software development and co-founding a software development company, having a prior career as an instructional designer for industrial and corporate training clients. And then segueing out of that, because it just wasn't fulfilling enough for me, in my 30s, I left to go off and work in film and theater. And I had a 20-year path with that, directing, writing, producing, and doing a lot of what's called script doctoring or script analysis. So I was a reader for a couple of nationwide screenplay writing contests. I ran my own screenplay contest for a few years down in Texas. And I went into creative producing, which is sort of the shipbuilder behind making a film, whether it's documentary or whether it's fiction. Someone will say the director is like the captain of the ship, which is a pretty good analogy, but the producer is the person who's building the ship. Mm-hmm. And they got to find the money and figure out what kind of boat it is and where are we going and how long are we going to be on the ocean, all that sort of stuff. So I spent over 25 years working with people, first in a startup environment and then in a creative performing arts environment, working with people to help them figure out, well, what is your story? And a few years ago, I reached a place where that path for me dead-ended. It was just, that dog don't hunt. I cannot push this boulder up this rock anymore. I had moved from the East Coast to Austin, Texas to Los Angeles, California. I'd had a production company. I had a feature film that was on the film festival circuit. And then I had a fabulous baby, and we moved back to the Midwest so that we could have 4 seasons. And after a few years of keeping some projects going and working on some stuff, each sort of avenue that I had my footprints on, it just, by the end of 2014, it was just, I'd hit a wall. There was nowhere else for me to try to apply myself to make a sustainable living out of that path. And that had been my North Star for 20 years. So I sat in the void and I didn't know what was next. And I had enough tread on my wheels to know that wherever I went next, I wanted it to feel like it wasn't a retread. I've tried a lot of stuff, been interested in a lot of stuff, and I'm capable of a lot of stuff. But where did I want to go next that felt intentional now that my North Star was dimmed? And then it dawned on me. after 20 some odd years of working with writers and creatives and filmmakers and actors and all this sort of stuff, even people who make what's called multi-platform narratives, which we could get really deep into being story geeks with that, I realized that I could look at what my choices were if I looked at my life as a story and with me as the hero, the main character. And I realized that if I could put on my own author hat, the creator of my story, and look at my life, it gave me this layer of remove and objectivity, that the same clarity that I could bring to other people about what their story was about, I could bring to my own
life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everything sort of dovetailed together from, the beginning of 25, 30 years ago, being an instructional designer, all the way through coaching people on their stories and directing actors, and all of this dovetailed. And I realized that I could enable other people. I could take my process and create a framework to enable other people to use that framework of storytelling to get clarity about their own stories and how they deal with change or with transition, or what do they want, what feels purposeful to them. So a couple of years ago, I created a course out of my process of storytelling, and I began doing workshops and keynote presentations, and boy, is it fun.
I think it'd be really fun.
It's very gratifying. It's
Absolutely.
very gratifying to be part of a process where someone gets that aha moment.
Well, I think that we so often, I know at least in my life, I'm old, so I've had lots of weird experiences, and you don't know that all of those mesh together to form who you are now. And we all, sometimes we get in dead ends, or we get in positions where we think, is this really all there is in my life? And we just, if we step back, if we can take that author role, like you said, and step back and look at the situation, we see that there's actually infinite possibilities of what we could do. And the most fun part of it, being a creative, is you create your own thing. You create your own niche. You create your own way that you're going to contribute to the world and make it a better place. So I think that's wonderful.
Oh,
Would you mind sharing a little bit of your process with us? I'll say that from my standpoint, as going from a brick and mortar world to the online world, I've learned that your story and telling your story and picking the parts out of that people can relate to is really, really vital in your success online. And so for me, that's been a really big awakening, and part of why I wanted to interview you, because I think if I'm going through something and struggling with it, probably a lot of the other people listening are as well. Mm-hmm. Would you mind just sharing what's a good way for people to get in touch with or start looking at their story?
A couple of things. Okay. A couple of things I want to bring to mind. A couple of things. I think, for one thing, people who don't consider themselves quote unquote creative, they think of storytelling as something that is a movie or a book, or you have to be a writer, or you're up on stage. But I want to challenge that idea and say a story can be as simple as the thoughts going through your head. And for someone like me who's mentally restless and has about 1,000 thoughts going through my head at any one moment, it's been helpful for me to step back and look at those thoughts and question them about what stories are these thoughts telling me? What story am I going along with and accepting as the truth, when really it's just a thought? I'm the author. I can choose to ignore that story or reframe it. So we're all storytellers. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say that you show up at work and you spilled your coffee in the car, and it's raining out, and you got a bill in the mail that you thought was already taken care of. So when you get to work, the first person you talk to, you say, oh, I spilled coffee on myself. It was raining. The hem of my pants are all wet, and I got this blah, 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 blah. Well, let's say you talk to 3 people at work before you sit down and work. And the thing is as you're relaying your experience to them, the story of what your morning was like, there's an energy there because you want that person to feel like you were there with me when I spilled my coffee and I drove in the rain and I got that envelope that I thought was already paid. Right?
Yep.
So unwittingly, you are reliving the energy of those experiences over and over and over because of the story that you're telling. So that's one thing that I just want to bring people's attention to about what a story is. A story can be as simple as what energy you continue to put on repeat without thinking about it. And in that instance, maybe the first person you tell about your morning, it's like a valve release. You're like, oh, good, I got that out of my system. Now I'm going to sit down and I'm turning off that story. I'm not giving any more energy to that, right? The other thing I want to say in answer to your question is going from offline to online. There is this aspect that I found to being online where it's always on and there is always input available. There's always input coming your way. There's data. As an entrepreneur, I know from my own experience, one of the things I like about it is wearing many hats. I like to wear many hats. And the nature of film producing and a lot of creative enterprises is wearing a lot of hats and needing to get up to speed on a lot of disparate things. Mm-hmm. And it's really great to know that you can do that. You know, if I have to figure out the techie thing, I'm competent enough that I could do that. Or if I need to figure out a better sales funnel, I'm competent. I can figure out how to do that. But the thing is, you can get buried under all of the hats that are possible to put on. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So here's another place where you can look at the story that's out there about you should do this and you should do this, and to build your company you should do this, and all the shoulds, right? All these little stories about if you want success, if you want more customers, if you want higher sales, if you want to balance your stress, you need to do this. But what I offer is a moment, I take you through a process where I just ask you, outside of all of that, what do you believe your story is about? Okay, so every story has an about sentence. It's kind of like that TV guide description. Actually, I think about that too. You've said before, I'm old and
I shouldn't say that. I know.
I know. But there comes a point where you're in midlife and you realize that people who are grown-ups, who are 20, 25 years younger than you, they're not going to have the same frame of reference, and that makes you feel old. Yeah. So I'm even thinking of some of our listeners thinking like, what's TV guide? But you think of that, sort of one sentence description of what a story is about at a glance. And what I did is I created an about sentence for myself. So in short, the about sentence includes this information. Lori is a story about a blank blank. That's my hero description. And every story of transformation, of growth, which we hope your story fundamentally is, otherwise you're decaying. Every story about transformation, the main character usually has a tragic flaw. So Lori is a story about a hero description. I call myself a compulsive creative. In my case, I struggle with a lifelong relationship with anxiety and depression. Who wants ABC in order to XYZ? So in a story, while the story's going on, you're down in story mode. Do, 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 do. You, as a hero, might not realize what you want. But seasoned authors, the longer they've been at it, telling stories about people on journeys of transformation, they recognize that they have an idea what their hero wants. And sometimes the hero does know what she wants in the moment. And usually in the process of acting on choices that get them closer to their wants, they become aware of what motivates them. There's sort of a symbiotic relationship between what you want and what's motivating you. But when someone works with me, or when I'm taking someone through a workshop or a keynote presentation, we're going to spend that hour or that coaching session taking the time to dig into each of those meaty piece parts. So who are you? How would you describe yourself as the hero? You're the main character of the story. You get 2 words, and I have reasons for that, and I explain to people what they are. But you get 2 words. You get 1 adjective and 1 noun. Want to play?
Oh, you're really asking me? Oh my gosh. Well, I call myself the pajama grandma, which everybody freaks out about, so that's not appropriate.
That's also, I mean, I would also say that that's a persona that you have right now.
Right. But it might change as part of my transformation and as part of my journey.
Right.
Somebody said to me the other day that, and it was really powerful, we all live our lives in a constant never-ending story because there's always that narrative going on in our head. And I thought that was super powerful because I'm one of those people that really never thought that much about it. But as you speak about the energy that it creates when we tell a story, that's something that we want to pause and say, is that the energy I want to create throughout my day? And I think of my daughter the other day, she woke up and she was super grumpy and she just kept reiterating it. And I'm like, okay, is that really how you want to live your entire day today? And
exactly.
So that was a very powerful thing. And then this about statement too, I hope people are catching the power of this process as I try to buy time in terms of my adjective and my noun, right? My adjective would probably be
and I am putting you on the spot, and
that's all right.
Don't feel like you're gonna be
I would probably say that I'm a workaholic grandma. Is that appropriate?
That's a good start. Now, I would ask you to consider some words that describe you in the present, but also as far back as you can remember.
Yeah, workaholic pretty much covers it.
Okay, so let's choose
corporate America or for myself. I would work 20 hours a day if I could. It drives my kids nuts because work for me is creative and fun. And by work, now I define my own work, but even when it was somebody else's work, I still was like that. It's like there's this little engine running in me all the time that has or continuous learner or something, because I love learning and understanding, and I'm curious about new things. So I don't know.
Let's play with that for a moment. So your noun is workaholic. So let's play with some adjectives. Adjectives that describe you now and also as far back as you can remember.
Well, I'm pretty high energy, so I don't want to say hyper because I'm not really hyper. I'm a lot more low key than I was, 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I had a sudden cardiac arrest, and that sort of turned everything around for me. And I thought I'd be less of a workaholic, but I still have a tendency toward that all the time.
Well, it also sounds to me in your quote unquote workaholism that you have an engine and it wants a track to climb.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't sound like the workaholism is necessarily an escape route. It's just more of this is how I get to run my engine. And my engine always wants to run.
Yeah, I know my dad was like that, so I'm sure that's where I got part of it. But it's just like, I want to go, go, go all the time. I go, 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 and then I sleep a few hours, and then I go, go, go from the time I get up at 4:30 to 11 when I go to bed or whenever.
Okay.
So, I don't know. That's my story right now.
Yes. So we would unpack that a little bit, and When I've worked one-on-one with people, this is where creating I have this whole process as an online course. So when someone works with me, we work in 4 1-hour sessions. It's like a package, and I will give them access to the online course because there's videos, there's text, there's worksheets, and that provides us a bouncing ball to follow. And so usually we'll spend one of our sessions digging into just describing yourself and talking about that and diving into that more deeply. And also your tragic flaw. A lot, it's funny. Some people right off the bat. What's that?
I got plenty of them.
Well, what's interesting is, to me, it's really interesting because sometimes some people that I've worked with right off the bat, I barely get the words out and they know what their tragic flaw is. I'm thinking of one person who is, she is such a warrior soul, and her tragic flaw is anger, like righteous anger, boom, wildfire. And if you want somebody on your side, she is the person to have on your team. But it also gets in her way because it flares up when it's not warranted, or it complicates things that didn't need to be complicated. And then other people, I take them through a process of just sort of digging in to what are some of these underlying beliefs and stories you have about yourself. And, does that come from your maternal grandmother calling you a good eater when you were 6 years old? Or does that come from you laying claim to a sense of who you are for as far back as you can remember? So we'll take each piece of this and really, and it's playful. The whole idea of it is to loosen you up, but also to honor yourself enough to know that this is a big thing for me, that 2 things. One are the answers aren't outside of you. That's so cliched, but
no, it's so powerful though. It's so true and so powerful. And most people, they inherently know it, but they don't know it on the surface level at all.
Right. So or they don't know what to do with that.
They give away
okay, so the answers are within. Well, if they're within me, why aren't they obvious to me? Or how about this? I know I could be successful, or I know I could accomplish blah, 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 if someone would just give me the recipe. Just give me a ladder. I'll climb it.
The recipe's everywhere though. But if you're not willing to see or ready to see the recipe, you don't see it. It's like opportunity. Right. If you don't think that opportunity is for you and you have those limiting beliefs, you won't even see opportunities that are right in front of your face.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But in the big story of your life, over the many chapters or over the many books in the series, when you say that they might not recognize an opportunity right in front of them, then to me, I would ask, is that speaking to their tragic flaw? Are you bumping up against something that is inherently part of you? This isn't a villain, okay? This isn't somebody who's got a message for you that on some basis is telling you you suck and you'll never not suck. But the tragic flaw is something that often is a strength, but it's out of balance. So perhaps you have a fantastic work ethic. I don't know off the top of my head, what your tragic flaw could be, but in a fantastic work, let's say your tragic flaw was workaholism, right? And so as far as recognizing an opportunity in front of you, if you're caught up in your tragic flaw being on overdrive and you're not aware of that pattern that you have, yeah, of course, you're going to blow right by stuff. Because you haven't, you're not questioning the story you have about how things can turn out for you. The other thing that I just like to bring to mind, or it's just a big soapbox for me, is that you have a choice. even in a scenario that seems impossible and hopeless and insurmountable, that's where the hero is in the story. But you, with your author hat, you open yourself up to a wider perspective and go, okay, well, what choices are there for my hero here? There's always a choice. It doesn't mean you have to like it.
There's always a choice, and there's always there's always a different way of looking at it. And even if we can't control the situation, we always have the ability to control how we react to the situation. And that's where our ultimate power and choice lies, at least I think.
Right.
Like, bad things happen all the time, but I don't have to choose to let it define me and ruin my story.
Absolutely.
It's just
so here's the other thing. Here's the other thing too, tying it back to business owners. And I know this from experience. I am online with you guys. I have a website. I am a compulsive creative. I'm creating shit all the time. I'm exploring new formats all the time. So, and I'm really curious about what other people's experiences are. And if I'm trying to figure out how to do it myself, I'm looking at everybody else who's saying, do it this way. But when people talk about like marketing and who your ideal client is and branding yourself, to me, sometimes that's like putting a Band-Aid on something without necessarily understanding what the Band-Aid is covering. Like, where did that come from? How do you, yes, you could try on all of these different, stories about what you're about and what you want and what you want your business to be perceived as and what you want to accomplish with it. But imagine if you could understand, if you could feel some ownership that what you're doing is coming from a place of self-knowledge.
Do you think that that has to do with, and this is probably right up your alley, the whole concept of the attractive character, and that really it's more important to have you be the persona and the person behind the brands that you're creating, like from a branding standpoint and everything, that who you show up as in your business and in your life as the attractive character, that's a lot of the self-discovery work and things that you're talking about, I think.
Right.
And you need to, I personally think you need to authentically show up as who you are. A lot of people don't. They put on different masks and different, brands, and they hide behind business and things. But I think the ones that really succeed are the ones that figure out exactly what you're talking about and become who they really are. They embrace 100% of themselves, including the, fatal flaw, which, gosh, like I said, I'm sure I got a lot of them. But my other question about the fatal flaw is that maybe your false beliefs that kind of act in your life nonstop? Could that be considered a fatal flaw?
Well, it could be if your fatal flaw is always believing the answer is outside of yourself.
Right. I'm thinking like that, or the common ones are I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve, or the universe is out to get me versus the universe supports me. Things like that. Could a false belief. I just was wondering as you're talking about that, could a false belief actually be your fatal flaw?
I would say I would call it a fatal flaw if your tendency to hold fast to false beliefs is something that you've carried with you through a number of false beliefs. And so the question I would pose to you is in terms of a trait that gets in your way one way or another repeatedly, because we don't ever fully eradicate the tragic flaw. We ideally we get to a place where we can live in balance with it. So I'll give you my case with anxiety and depression. I can remember the first time I felt depressed. I was 6 years old. I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know that's what it's called. But at points throughout my life, this trait that I have in my life story of being affected by anxiety, looping thoughts, mental restlessness, a sense of hopelessness related to nothing in particular. These have come up in different chapters, in different ways. It could be feeling stuck in a rut when I'm 13, or it could be self-sabotage. You know, you have a company going, you have a project going, you've got a new product that you're announcing, or you've just added 3 more clients, or you have a big plan for a marketing push, and then all of a sudden you can't get out of bed the next morning, or I don't know, some people go out and spend $500 on shoes they don't need. It's like that moment of that self-sabotage, like, whoa. So for me, it's been illuminating and helpful to recognize how I feel my tragic flaw lives with me, how I live with it. And knowing, in fact, that when I take on something towards what I want, if it's outside my scope of experience, and it's going to be challenging to me, and there's a lot of question marks behind it, it's not surprising anymore to me when some of my crap comes up again. I don't know, how many times have you thought to yourself, when you trip over this same BS again, you're like, I thought I learned my lesson with XYZ. I thought I was yeah. And you come back around, you're like, really? Again? This is coming up again? To me, that is something we can look at in your story as your hero's tragic flaw.
Fascinating. Like I said, I can think of so many. It's kind of humorous, but like my kids will tease me because I always say no to everything immediately. Whenever I'm faced with anything, I say no. I immediately say no. Now, within about 5 minutes, I'll change my mind if I think about it and say yes, but I miss out on a lot of stuff because I always say no the first time as it goes by. And my kids learned, of course, because kids are so wise and smart, that when they were younger, all they had to do was give me 5 minutes, come back and ask me again. And I would have thought about it more rationally and changed my mind and said yes. And, you know, things like that. I don't know, would that be considered a fatal flaw?
I would think of that as, what's the word I'm looking for?
A bad habit.
No, well, I wouldn't even call it a bad habit. When you were talking, it made me think of this. I'm really fascinated myself about brain science and also the science of consciousness. And there's an author, a doctor, Daniel Amen, and I think a couple of his books, one of his books is called like Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. He's a neurophysician, anyway, all about neurological stuff. And he's done brain scans on like 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 people or something over the last 20 years. And the brain scans show the state of people's brains. You know, are they pockmarky? Are they holy? Are they full? Is one side more shrunk than the other? All of these sort of things. And then tying the different physiological appearances of their brains with behaviors, mood disorders, impulsivity, resilience, all that sort of stuff. And he shared an anecdote about his father being the same type of person. He always started with no. But when he related that to what he had picked up from his observances of these brain scans over 20, 30 years, and you know, people with whatever was similar to his dad's brain scan start at no. Like, you can point at it on the graph and like, okay, that brain, you know, that piece of the brain right there, which is lit up right now, this person 99% of the time, if you come to them with a question, if you come to them with data or input that requires an immediate response, their brain is going to go, no, I cannot compute immediately. I must consider. So I don't know that I wouldn't call that a fatal flaw. I would only again, I would call that more of a trait.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just part of the description of your hero. Uh, um, that's kind of like more like fingernails or hair color as opposed to the spine.
But it's probably a choice, and it's probably something that you could change if you wanted to. I just don't ever want to, because it's my trick for buying myself time to actually consider the, you know, the plus and minus of anything that people ask me. So,
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I guess I want to know how people can find your course for sure before we finish talking. And I also wonder, do you have like a favorite story from your past in how storytelling has positively impacted you? Because I feel like you can almost rewrite your own story. If you discover your fatal flaw,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can rewrite your story to help you to minimize the impact of that on your life once you know what that is.
Yeah. A couple of things about that. One is it is very empowering to feel that I'm able to articulate my story in a way that it feels it's authentic to me. Mm-hmm. And it's also been empowering because while figuring it out, one of the hardest things, and it changes, and that's okay. But in this about sentence is, you know, what your hero wants. And there's about 2,700 answers to that. But what's been really empowering for me as I've kept sort of drilling down into it is it was a really scary thing for me to admit, to claim as part of my story that I want to be seen and valued as an artist. I had so many stories about how that was not something to want.
Or that we don't deserve it, or we're not good enough. I think
right.
that I don't deserve it.
Who are you to think you're an artist?
And yeah,
what do you have to show for it?
I think that is so inherently built into our nature and our society that it's really scary, because I think that's like a fatal flaw of our society.
Yep.
Oh, you're frozen. There you go.
Yep. But I think that's also, I mean, in sort of the big story of like, why are you here? I feel like you can lay claim to what your experience is and what your story is. It's almost like faith. When it comes down to having faith in something, no matter what everybody else's stories are about what that means or how you get it or whether it exists, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, for you to ever feel that you have faith in yourself, that is a process that is unique only to you. You're the only person who can stare into the void and come to some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of a word.
I guess personal acceptance and knowing that you're here to experience your life as you uniquely can.
Right, exactly. Now, if you just kind of started at that place of confidence, self-knowledge, faith, there's something to be said for going through a gauntlet or there's a whole thing that I talk about when I'm talking about wants, about the role of resistance. And sometimes, simply put, resistance is good at just building up your strength, building up your confidence, building up your the specificity of what you are about. So, oh, it's gone.
Okay. I'm not the only one that does that.
I lost the thread of the story. So I will finish up. Thank you for asking me. And I'm looking at the clock, and I have to go pick up my kiddo. So where to find me? I am at lauriemarsh.com, LORIEMARSH. And I also have my online course. It's at changeyourstory.teachable.com. And it's change-your-story. dot.
I'll put those links in, Lori.
Okay.
I'll put them in.
And there's a self-paced version. I mean, you can work with me in a coaching package, or you can just purchase the course. You have lifetime access to it. It's $99. I think I'm doing. In fact, I know I'm running a promotion this month. I think I've got 20% off. If somebody's interested in that, they can contact me at hi@lorimarsh.com, and I can give them the coupon code. I'd give it to you now, but I'm afraid I'm going to give you the wrong one.
Yeah. People should be interactive, and when they want something, it really reinforces for them that they go out of their way a little bit to find it.
True.
I'm perfectly cool with that. I believe in action takers.
Cool. And the other thing too is I love being in front of people. I love doing keynotes. I love doing breakout sessions, workshops, and I'm really interested in what's really interesting to me. It's something that I want to look into a little bit more now going forward, is just the stories that teams have about their work, their project, their companies. There's a lot of talk about leadership, and I understand that. And I think in order to be a compelling and effective leader, it helps to know who you are, yourself. But I would just be really fascinated to have, a 1-hour workshop with perhaps a small business person who's running a business, who's got a team, where not only you're talking with the leader and what their picture is for the business, but their team who's showing up. Would everybody describe what their service or their business is about in similar or complementary terms? Do people have completely divergent stories about what their work is and why they're showing up?
I will say from my past experience that they absolutely do. My first job out of college as an industrial engineer was for Procter & Gamble, and we ran teams. We went from a traditional manufacturing, making toilet paper organization to team-based management. And it was really, really interesting and enlightening. But I've always been fascinated in working with teams. My whole corporate career was all about interdepartmental teams and growing them. And I will tell you from experience, every single person on the team comes at it from a different perspective. It's just like a relationship.
Yep.
How he sees it and she sees it, or however your relationship is entirely different. Like my ex-husband and I, we agreed and have core values that are similar in some areas, but the way we look at our marriage and at different things in it, we're absolutely opposite. Right. And so take that times how many ever team members you have, and that's the exponential differences that you have. That would be fascinating work, just so you know. Because I don't think that there's enough actual study that goes into that. But think about how you could use storytelling and story to bring that all together, because a team that's convergent on the actual goal and they really are working all in the same direction is totally unstoppable. And if you figure that out,
and there is, I know a lot of design thinkers, and again with this sort of multi-platform, which is where you're carrying a story across different platforms and you're executing different aspects of the story in different media, but it's all one sort of story world.
Yeah.
To me, what I was thinking when you were saying is like how empowering it is if you've got your team all, like, you kind of crowdsource the story of what you're about. Yes, there's a director. Okay. There's a captain of the ship. There's perhaps a producer. So the company is the producer, the project manager or the company leader is the director, but no film shoots itself. And, sort of the best production teams are where everybody has a sense of what the vision is, and they are bringing their goodies to that vision and service to it. They don't have to pretend, and it's not in an inauthentic way. It's just in a way that I'm going to go kick some ass today doing what I'm uniquely good at as part of this project, company, service, product. I go in and out every day to work, and it feels meaningful to me because I'm kicking ass with what I'm uniquely good at in service to this story that we've all put together and we all go, yeah, about.
That would be absolute gold.
Yeah.
You could teach groups and teams to do that because they'd be unstoppable. That would be absolutely powerful and very, very, very powerful.
Yep.
And especially new businesses, it sounds really fun. I'm excited about it for you. I'm like, that would be an awesome thing because it's approaching a problem that everybody knows exists, but no one has a solution for. So if you can come in with a unique, creative solution that would be fun and exciting, and everybody, whenever anybody's involved in anything, it's the reason teams fall apart is because people don't feel like their contribution is valued or important. But if you can get everybody on the same page of, hey, I just do the design work here. All I do is like design.
They get very siloed.
Right. Oh my God. That was my silo exactly from corporate America. I worked in Fortune 50 companies, really big organizations as a quality director. And so my job was to try to bring all of that together. But if we would have had a creative way like storytelling to co-create a story for that team or for that organization, that would be so incredibly powerful.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
You need to explore that.
We should have another chat again in the future just about that.
Absolutely.
And I hate to beg off because I'm enjoying talking.
Not a problem. I appreciate it. We know how to get a hold of you. We'll have another chat down the road because that's super exciting. And if you actually come to do some work like that, that would be very powerful for the group of people that interact here. So that would be
wonderful. And I'm open to the idea. I mean, if you're able to if people have questions or if they have a case study or let's hop online and we can do a live. Absolutely. And just sort of prototype it a little bit and see what falls out and whether we could go forward with it in any sort of helpful way.
Co-creation, and it's very, very powerful. It's part of why I like doing interviews because I meet amazing people that I never would have met otherwise. So you go get your child because children are our most important priority.
Yes.
I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us and the wisdom that you've shared about storytelling with us. And people will be, I'm sure, checking out your process and seeing how they can apply it to their life and then hopefully to their teams as well down the road.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon. And goodbye, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. You have a great day.
Okay. Bye.